If you asked most people about the Falkland Islands, you'd be told about the 1982 conflict and the fact they're a long way from the UK. There's also the perception that it's a poor place with no income or economy of its own. But as Tim Cooper's been finding out, the reality is very different.
Until the 1980s, most of the Falklands' income came from sheep, and there's still an awful lot of them here. But the last 30 years has seen the economy diversify. They've done this by playing to their strengths, using what nature has provided and building business around it. And it's been very successful. With the exception of defence, the Falkland Islands is financially self-sufficient. It started back in the 80s. People have always fished these waters, but the profits weren't channelled through here. In 1987, Falklands fishing licences were offered, now encompassing the fishing grounds stretching out 200 nautical miles. It means factory squid ships like this one from China have to pay for the privilege of fishing these well-stocked seas. And it's the most substantial income generator for the Falklands government, standing at 60% of GDP in 2007. But another type of ship is hard on the fishing smack's revenue-generating heels. This is MV Hanseatic, one of 11 cruise liners to visit Stanley in February alone. Passengers disembarking here have shot up from a little over 22,000 in the year 2000 to 62,000 in 2009. Great news for gift shop owners like Stibby Summers.
For myself, it's very important because this is our livelihood now. I used to work in shops before, and with buying this one, it's the only income that's coming, and you know, it is, and it helps the islands as well because all my stuff's all locally produced.
The Falklands government stands full square behind increasing tourism. There's even a tourist board.
Tourism's number 2 of GDP here. It's worth around about £7 million to the economy. The changes that are happening is the government has identified that we need to reinvest in tourism here. The infrastructure's not big enough to handle any increase in the future. So what we're doing is we've just finished a national tourism strategy that includes quite a large amount of investment into the waterfront development here.
The tourists come to get a taste of the unique Falklands lifestyle and, of course, the wildlife. Just a couple of miles from Stanley Centre, Gypsy Cove lets visitors who might only be here for an hour or so get right up close to penguins. It's an exhilarating wildlife encounter and undoubtedly the USP which has encouraged liner bosses to add the Falklands to their itineraries. But with a buoyant economy comes development, and visitors returning to Stanley, like John Raymond and Sally Kimber back after 8 years, notice the change.
As we came in, the amount of development is enormous. You know, Stanley appears to have spread, well, along the coastline.
So to the future, where can these islands develop further? Hydrocarbons is the buzzword round here right now. That's oil and gas to you and me. One site is thought could yield $50 billion of crude, and there are several other fields being studied. The Department of Mineral Resources sees a big financial future gushing from the wells.
It will certainly transform the government's revenue. It will increase the revenue budget that FIG has more or less overnight once first oil production starts by sort of several times over. So it'll quite dramatically affect the economy, and it will give a lot of opportunities to the private sector businesses.
So from fishing to tourism to oil, the Falklands economy has a lot to shout about. All this income has pushed living standards to a level comparable with Northern Europe. If oil comes on stream, maybe there's even a brighter future ahead. Tim Cooper, Forces News, Stanley.